My family bought everyone tickets to go see the movie, but they didn't buy me a ticket and kicked me out. Let the story begin. The buzzing excitement in the house was palpable. Mom had gathered everyone in the living room, holding up an envelope that promised a family outing like no other. "I bought tickets for all of us to see the new movie," she exclaimed, her eyes twinkling. Cheers erupted from my siblings, each one eagerly speculating about the popcorn, the special effects, and the plot twists. I joined in, smiling and nodding, already picturing myself nestled in one of those comfy theater chairs. When it was time to leave, everyone scrambled to grab jackets and shoes. Mom began handing out the tickets. "Here you go, Ellie. One for Sam, one for Dad, one for Jill." I held out my hand expectantly, but Mom frowned as she looked at the tickets. Then she glanced at me. "Wait, where's your ticket?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I don't know," I said, confused. Everyone fell silent. Mom shuffled through her purse, then counted the tickets again. "Oh no," she said, her face paling. "I only bought 5 tickets. I forgot about you." The room grew awkward. Jill giggled nervously, and Dad scratched the back of his neck. "Well," he said, "the movie starts in 20 minutes, and the theater's fully booked. What should we do?" I thought they'd offer to stay home or at least take turns, but instead, Mom gave me a sympathetic look. "Maybe you can find something fun to do here while we're gone?" Before I could respond, Dad ushered everyone out the door. "We'll bring you back some popcorn," he said over his shoulder as they left. I stood there in stunned silence, staring at the closed door. The sound of their car pulling out of the driveway made the emptiness of the house echo even louder. For a moment, I felt the sting of rejection. But then, an idea hit me. I headed to the kitchen, grabbed a bag of microwave popcorn, and queued up a movie I'd been meaning to watch. I built my own little theater with blankets and pillows, the living room now a cozy fortress of solitude. As I hit play, I realized that maybe being forgotten wasn't so bad after all. Halfway through my makeshift movie night, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling of being left out. Every crunch of my popcorn felt hollow, every scene on the screen felt dull without someone to share it with. I glanced at my phone, hesitating. Should I text them? Tell them how unfair this was? Instead, I opened the group chat where the family usually buzzed with jokes and updates. It was silent. No one had even thought to check in on me. Anger bubbled up. How could they just leave me behind like that? I stood up, pacing the room, and decided I wouldn't let this slide. I grabbed my coat and headed out. The walk to the theater wasn't long, and by the time I arrived, I was determined. I peered into the lobby through the glass doors. There they were, laughing and chatting, popcorn buckets in hand, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd been excluded. I stepped inside and approached the counter. "Do you have any tickets left for the 7:30 showing?" I asked the cashier. "We're sold out," they replied apologetically. Of course. My heart sank. As I turned to leave, I heard a familiar laugh. It was Jill, coming out of the restroom. She froze when she saw me. "Wait, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice a mix of surprise and guilt. "I came to see the movie," I said, my tone sharp. "The one you all left me out of." Jill's face reddened. "Oh. I didn't think you'd come. I mean, it wasn't personal, Mom just forgot, and we didn't know what to do." "That's not an excuse," I interrupted. "You all could have at least tried to fix it." Jill shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry," she mumbled. "Don't tell me," I said. "Tell Mom and Dad." And with that, I walked out, leaving her standing there. The cold night air hit my face, but it felt strangely refreshing. I didn't need their apologies right now. I needed to remind myself of my worth, even if they hadn't. Back home, I settled into my blanket fort again, this time more determined. Being forgotten hurt, but it taught me something too. I didn't need their validation to enjoy my own company. This time, when I hit play, the movie was just for me, and it was better than any crowded theater. I was just starting to lose myself in the plot when the door creaked open. Footsteps shuffled in, hesitant but unmistakable. I paused the movie, turning to see my family standing awkwardly in the doorway, their expressions a mix of guilt and sheepishness. Mom stepped forward, holding a large popcorn bucket. "We, brought you this," she said, offering it like a peace treaty. Dad cleared his throat. "We realized leaving you behind wasn't fair. It wasn't right, and we're sorry." I raised an eyebrow, unsure whether to forgive them or stay mad. "So you just left the movie?" Jill piped up, holding up her phone. "Actually, we didn't even get to start it. After you left, I told everyone I saw you at the theater. That kind of killed the mood." Sam nodded. "We tried to watch, but it just didn't feel right without you." I folded my arms, still skeptical. "So you came back to, what? Apologize?" Mom nodded. "And to make it up to you?" She glanced at the blanket fort. "Mind if we join your theater?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay mad, to make them feel the way I did earlier. But looking at their hopeful faces, and the way Jill was clutching a bag of candy she'd clearly bought just for me, I sighed and scooted over, patting the couch. "Fine," I said. "But this is my movie night. No talking, no phones, and someone else makes the popcorn next time." They grinned and settled in, squeezing into the blanket fort. As the movie resumed, I realized something. While the quiet solitude of watching alone had its charm, having my family there, sharing laughs and gasps, made the movie, and the moment, even better. Sometimes, it's not about the big apologies or grand gestures. It's about showing up, even if you mess up along the way. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel forgotten as the credits rolled and the family chattered about their favorite parts. I couldn't help but feel a lingering weight in my chest. Their apology and effort to make things right mattered, but it didn't erase the sting of being left out in the first place. While Jill gathered the empty popcorn bowls and Mom started folding blankets, I quietly slipped away to my room. The chatter in the living room faded as I closed the door behind me. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my face caught between a smile and a frown. Why couldn't I just let it go? They came back, didn't they? A soft knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Dad. "Hey," he said gently, poking his head in. "Mind if I come in?" I shrugged, gesturing toward the bed. He sat down, his weight sinking into the mattress. "I know tonight didn't start out great," he began, his voice unusually tender. "And I'm sorry we made you feel invisible. That wasn't right?" I looked at him, my voice quieter than I expected. "It's not just about tonight. Sometimes it feels like I'm an afterthought. Like I don't matter as much." Dad's face fell, and he rubbed the back of his neck, searching for words. "That's not true," he said. "You matter. A lot. More than I can ever say. And if we've made you feel otherwise, then we need to do better." I blinked back tears, unsure whether to believe him. "Why did you forget me then? How could you not notice?" He sighed. "Because we got caught up in the excitement. We weren't thinking clearly. That's not an excuse, it's just the truth. And it's not fair to you." For a moment, the room was quiet except for the hum of the heater. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wanted to show you this," he said, handing it to me. I unfolded it, finding a hastily sketched calendar on the back of a receipt. Scrawled in messy handwriting were plans: game night, movie marathon, Dad and, your name, day, just us. "I've been thinking about how we can spend more time together," he said. "Because I want you to know how much you mean to this family. To me." I stared at the paper, my chest tightening. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. "Thanks," I whispered, barely audible. He smiled, ruffling my hair like he used to when I was little. "I'll let you get some sleep," he said, standing up. "But, just so you know, I'm here. Always." As the door clicked shut, I sat there, clutching the crumpled paper. The hurt hadn't vanished, but it felt lighter now. Sometimes, feeling seen isn't about grand gestures or big apologies. It's about the quiet moments, the ones where someone stops, looks at you, and says, "I see you. I care." And for the first time in a long time, I started to believe it. The days that followed weren't perfect, but they were different. Little changes began to pile up like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Jill knocked on my door one evening, holding a bag of chips and a sheepish grin. "Wanna help me with this ridiculous science project? I could use your brainpower." Mom called me into the kitchen a few nights later, handing me a wooden spoon. "You're in charge of taste testing tonight. I want your honest opinion." Even Sam, usually glued to his gaming console, nudged me one morning before school. "Saved you the last Pop-Tart," he said, tossing it onto my plate. "And Dad?" True to his word, he carved out a day just for us. We went to the park, tossing a frisbee back and forth like we used to when I was little. He didn't rush the conversation, didn't check his phone. He just listened. Each gesture, no matter how small, chipped away at the lingering doubt in my heart. They weren't trying to fix everything overnight, but they were trying. And that mattered. One evening, as we all piled into the living room for another family movie night, Mom handed me the remote. "Your turn to pick," she said, smiling. I looked around at them, my family, imperfect and sometimes thoughtless, but also mine. The sting of that night at the theater wasn't gone, but it had softened, replaced by something stronger: hope. As I scrolled through the movie options, I felt the corners of my mouth tug into a smile. "How about this one?" I asked, pointing to a comedy. They all groaned in unison, "Not that one." But their teasing was lighthearted, their laughter contagious. And as the opening credits rolled, I realized something. Sometimes, healing doesn't happen all at once. It's a process, a patchwork quilt of moments stitched together with care. And piece by piece, I was learning to trust again. For the first time in a long time, I didn't just feel seen. I felt loved.